The talk for the last, seems like 5 days or so, has been comments made by, not just specifically, but Senator Mark Kelly and others in Congress regarding following illegal orders. They did a video, and it has started an entire back and forth, if you will, with charges of sedition and treason, and I think there was an insinuation of a hanging in there somewhere. We want to understand more about this, and I truly want to kind of get a sense of, having never served, understanding how that process works, the orders and illegal orders. Joining us right now is Major General Mick McGuire, retired Air Force former commander, right, and candidate for Senate. Oh my God, that's absolutely right.
2022.
And you were the adjutant. Pronounce that word for me.
Adjutant General.
Adjutant
I told
General.
you it was adjutant.
You did not.
I did
of the
not.
Arizona National Guard. Thank you, sir, for being with us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Bruce. Gaydos.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to know if you think Senator Kelly made a mistake doing that video.
I do.
Really?
I do. You know, we were talking in the lead up here. Every single one of us that serves in the military, officer, warrant officer, enlisted, takes an oath of office or an oath of enlistment. That oath of office has the same first line. You're sworn to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. The Constitution is represented, not the piece of paper. You know, Gaydos, when you're deployed overseas, you're not thinking about some piece of paper, right? You're thinking about the people in the trenches with you, your brothers and sisters in arms, your families at home, and that's what it's about, protecting the rule of law and all the people that it represents, regardless of skin color, religious preference, political preference, it doesn't matter. So to tell officers from the bully pulpit in Arizona, as you know, 2022 was not that long ago. We had a period of time where we had, you know, the likes of Goldwater and McCain in the U.S. Senate, and now the senior statewide federally elected official is Mark Kelly, and that was just a few years ago. Right. Gallego has been elected since then. So I think it was a huge mistake for him to infer that something illegal is going on. Why would I state that water is wet to an entire professional officer corps in every service unless I thought it wasn't? And I immediately saw that and thought, what are we doing? Every one of these officers knows that every member of the military is required to follow legal, moral, and ethical orders. And if they believe they are not, there's a process by which they can challenge that through the chain of command. But under civilian control of the military, you elect a federal commander-in-chief every 4 years, and in Arizona, you elect our state commander-in-chief every 4 years as well.
The governor.
The governor,
of, yeah.
right.
But if it was a bad idea, in your opinion, like, okay, how did Trump handle it then? We're talking about hanging somebody. We talked, the Pentagon wants to court-martial Senator Kelly. We got the FBI is involved now. They want to talk to everybody who was in the video. I mean, he's not going to get court-martialed. That's silly, right?
Well, I mean, there's certainly a process by which he's afforded due process. I am familiar with the process of recalling people to active component. Typically, I've always been familiar with that happening when I was commanding general of the Guard here in Arizona. If we recalled someone to duty to prosecute them under a code of military justice, it was as a result of misconduct that we became aware of after they had left the service, but occurred while they were in service.
Got it.
In this particular case, he's now a senator. He takes an oath of office to be a U.S. senator.
Do you think he should be court-martialed for this?
I don't believe that that's a real thing relative to how it might play out. I would much prefer U.S. attorneys and the FBI to prosecute other things. But I do think that, unfortunately, like I said last night, it's a rookie error by Mark Kelly. He's an 06, a captain in the Navy, had a distinguished career, and now he's sullied his name by making the military partisan. People sometimes confuse the terms political with partisan. The military, by its very nature, is a political organization. It is how we extend the political will of the people by and through elections of representatives, senators, the president, governors, local elected officials. But the problem is, once we do that, they are a nonpartisan organization. And when you have an all-partisan Democratic group coming off of what was a government shutdown, where I told you in the lead-up, I have never seen a government shutdown where the Republicans, quote, won. But they won this time. But they won because the Democrats broke ranks, right? And you're seeing it internally. And so almost immediately, within days of that happening, this video comes out. What's the reason for that? It's to immediately pull attention away from that and try to calcify the base around the idea that Trump is doing something illegal. Well, if he's doing something illegal, bring the evidence forward.
A little vague.
Yeah, certainly vague.
We had Senator Gallego on yesterday, and he alluded to, and we followed up with it, and I don't think we got a lot of answers. He alluded to the fact that his office and other elected officials are hearing from active duty military concerned about illegal orders. Now, again, it's this nebulous they out there, some of these people, but no one can point to a specific instance.
Well, Bruce, let me share with you two things that I've heard from service members since this occurred, okay? The first one involves the idea that why are we casting this shadow of doubt about the loyalty of the military, right? Immediately, military members are offended that you think that I am not professional, not educated, not moral, not ethical in my execution of my duty. Yeah. Exactly. Well, why would you say that? And the second piece is to go to your comment about the comment of sedition. Where does this land with free speech and the rest? So let me share a couple of vignettes with you that might help clarify. You both are in the media. I was a lieutenant during the Gulf War in '91. Was deployed for 7 months, was one of the first ones to return home, was interviewed by a local news station in Salt Lake City almost immediately upon return because we had 42 days of 24/7 CNN coverage of Baghdad and the activities there. You both remember,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
We go through the interview. What's it like? It's surreal. Do you see anybody get shot down? All the things that they would ask. The last question the woman asked me from the media, like you two, is she says, Lieutenant McGuire, do you believe that we should have driven all the way to Baghdad? Mm-hmm. I looked at her. I said, ma'am, I think you mistake who I am. So what do you mean? I said, I'm a lieutenant in the United States Air Force. I'm trained to employ lethal force and execute to the objective that I'm given by the politically elected leaders of this country. We were told to eject all the Kuwaitis from the contiguous borders of Kuwait, or the Iraqis from Kuwait. Yeah. That's it. Once it was done, we came home.
You did
if
your
you
job.
think we should, exactly.
Right.
So injecting the military into this immediately makes them a political football. The second piece is you ask about why is there confusion amongst, Gallego says people are confused. Go forward to 2010. I'm on my final deployment doing some activity in Afghanistan. A young airman asked me, he says, General McGuire, I was a colonel at the time, Colonel McGuire, when are we going to win the war on terror? Mm-hmm. I said, when the needle gets on E. And he looked at me and said, what do you mean? I said, do you have a car? I said, yeah. Does it have a fuel indicator? Yeah. When it gets on E, what happens? You're out of gas. You don't go anymore. And in my perspective, it was about resources, right? You're fighting a philosophical war trying to define an objective that really has no beginning or middle or end.
It's an ideology.
Right. And what that does to the individual soldier is they begin to question, why am I here? What am I doing this for? Fast forward to today. We're seeing activities with drug runners. Mm-hmm. Okay,
this is Venezuela.
Yeah, Venezuela, right here in our region. We have designated this an FTO, a foreign terrorist organization, no different than Al Qaeda or ISIS or any of the rest. So those same types of confusion creep in, and because it's happening literally right in your backyard in the Caribbean, what do you do, right? And I know that Senator Kelly knows this. I know he knows this, but he chose anyway to dive in. How President Trump reacts is how he typically reacts, as if you punch at him, he's going to punch back twice as hard. Do I condone that activity always? No, but he's the commander-in-chief, duly elected, and in 28, there'll be a next guy. And regardless of what party they're from, I'm counting on the military to always follow moral, legal, ethical orders.
How difficult is it for a rank and file, a soldier, an airman, or Marine? How difficult is it for them to refuse an order that they believe is illegal. It strikes me that it must be a really high bar.
Oh, it is. It is.
You know, like
I did
shoot
I
into
did
that.
it.
Oh, so you've
I've
done
done
this. Please tell me that.
Oh, you know what?
Oh,
Let's hold that thought.
Okay.
So you actually refused an illegal order.
I refused to follow an order that they said was legal that I knew was not.
Okay. Why don't let's push pause because I want to hear that story.
Major General Mick McGuire, U.S. Air Force commander. You might remember was a candidate for Senate in studio with us. We're going to come back with that answer. In studio with us right now, if you're watching on YouTube, on the KTAR YouTube channel, why, that is Major General Mick McGuire, retired U.S. Air Force. Also, you might remember a candidate for Senate and used to be the boss here at Arizona National Guard, oversaw that entire operation. Great to have you in here. We finished just before the break with you saying that you have been faced with the dilemma of receiving an order that you didn't believe was lawful or legal.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that instance, please?
Absolutely. It was the reason I ended up running for the U.S. Senate and retired from the Air Force.
Okay.
You all remember the incident on January 6th of 2021. And the media, the way it has been portrayed and covered, it makes it so confusing to the outsiders to understand what actually happened. But I'm certain you will all remember post-January 6th, the deployment of 26,000 National Guardsmen on the 15th of January, which is 2 divisions of soldiers in less than 2 weeks, to put a 7.5-mile perimeter around the people's house to protect it from the people that elected them. Okay? I was asked on the 9th of January to participate in a call with then Chris Miller, the acting Secretary of Defense, and General Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, and was told that we were each to deploy a percentage of our guard to make out that 26,000.
The Arizona National Guard.
Right, all 50 states, 3 territories, and District of Columbia. I simply said that that is an order that cannot be delegated beyond the president. Do we have this in writing from President Trump? Like, don't have an opinion about whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. And they said, no, you're going to do it under state active duty. And I said, well, I'm the advocate for both the federal and state authorizations of all of our soldiers in the state representing Governor Ducey and sending Arizona Guardsmen under his command and control into the federal District of Columbia would be tantamount to a military invasion. I can't do that.
Wow.
And they said, well, General, what about if we put them in Title 32, which is it's all very wonky. There are 3 ways a guardsman can serve state active duty. You as state taxpayer pays for it. Title 32 is a federally funded program that the governors execute under state legal authorities. And then Title 10, which is the authority under which all active component members operate, and every guard and reserveman, every guardsman and every member of the reserve when they're mobilized for any kind of kinetic combat operation. I said the only way you can go into the District of Columbia with guardsmen from out of state is to put them under Title 10. You get me a deployment order signed by the president, I'll do it. Otherwise, no deal. And it had nothing to do with whether I liked Trump or I didn't like Trump.
You're following the law.
I'm just like the law.
What ended up happening?
I got called shortly thereafter about, can I get Governor Ducey's phone number? I said, absolutely. Here's his direct cell. Give him a call.
Right.
You know what he's going to say? He's going to say, if McGuire says it's not legal, we're not doing it.
So we didn't do it.
We didn't do it. And we were the only state that didn't do it. We're the only state in the union.
Did other states not do it?
49 out of 50 did it.
Could Governor Ducey have ordered this to happen?
Nope. He didn't have the authority.
He didn't have the authority.
As the governor of Arizona, if you take armed soldiers from your state and send them to New Mexico without the consent of New Mexico, state to state, that's an invasion.
Right.
But isn't that what's happening?
No, so now it gets even more confusing.
It does get confusing.
Right? So now Trump becomes the president. I'll give you 2 examples in the last 6 months.
You send the Texas National Guard to Illinois or whatever.
Correct. Or you send the Missouri Guard to Tennessee.
Okay.
What's the difference?
Yeah.
In Memphis, Tennessee, the governor is a Republican, and he has asked for assistance from the federal government for the crime problem in Memphis. When that happens, they deploy under an agreement on Title 32, no different than we've been doing the border mission in support of federal authorities since 2006.
Is that also like humanitarian missions when there's a hurricane or something?
Any
right?
type of invite from the governor.
Got it.
Okay, you go to Illinois without the consent of Governor Pritzker, or you go to an ICE facility or a federal courthouse in Portland without the governor's consent, you are going there in Title 10 with the direct authority of the president. You cannot enforce any laws in Oregon. You can only protect the federal property and the agents that are there. It's totally legal, but what gets conflated is whatever side decides they want to do it. In this particular case, we were being asked. I even said, and I have it memorialized, to the Secretary of Defense and the chairman and the chief of the National Guard Bureau, just turn Trump's Twitter back on January 11th and let him tweet, send the guard and I'll be there. But there was nothing. You remember, we shut down his Twitter and no one heard from him again until the 21st. You can't have that. Regardless of what you think of the individual, let's leave all the personalities out of it for a minute. That is not the rule of law. The rule of law is this is the duly elected president till the 21st. I took a load of blowback on my campaign 3 months later when I said I'm retiring. I don't want you to refer to me as general, to politicize this process. There's a bright line between those that are serving and those that are in the political process. And I would acknowledge Biden as the president because the Electoral College voted. And I used to take just pummelings at every event. Why do you call him President Biden? Why don't you call him all these other names they'd come up with?
Well, you served under President Obama and President Bush.
And I was commissioned with Reagan. I've been through it all.
You've been through them all, yeah.
So ultimately, that's how I look at it. And I made the decision at that point, when we talk about politicization of the military, was that too many of my colleagues were not thinking this all the way through. I made it very clear why I objected.
Yeah.
And they chose to say, well, someone promised that there's a piece of paper somewhere in D.C.
That's not good enough
that
for
says
you, right?
that's not good enough. You got to show me the order.
Really appreciate your insight into this and your firsthand knowledge of it. Outstanding. Yeah. Again, that is Major General Mick McGuire, retired from the Air Force, and you might remember as I'd say the word again, Adjutant
General.
Adjutant General.
One in every state.
Of the Arizona National Guard. We sincerely appreciate your time. Thank you for being so gracious with us.
Thank you. God bless you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you as well.
Thanks for watching Outspoken with Bruce and Gaydos. Tap to watch more from KTAR News and click the button in the middle to subscribe.